My name is Alisa, I'm 32, and tonight I returned. To the house where every holiday felt borrowed, never mine. I was setting the last plate when my mother said, "Alisa, you don't deserve a seat at this table tonight." The turkey steamed, candles trembled, and conversation collapsed into whispers. Sandra kept stirring potatoes like wet plaster she couldn't smooth. Beverly folded napkins with surgeon-steady hands that wouldn't meet mine. Ronald stared at his knuckles, searching for courage he misplaced. I tasted rosemary, butter, and humiliation thick as gravy. 3 years away, and still I was the household stranger. Promotions, transfers, quiet payments, none of it purchased simple respect. So I set the plate down and lifted my voice. If they wouldn't give me space, I would claim it. And the truth I carried would finally sit beside me. I learned patience at dinner tables, not classrooms or sermons. Patience with lukewarm casseroles, repeated prayers, and swallowed words. Mom believed good girls served, smiled, and spoke only softly. Our Ohio kitchen was small, but rules filled every corner. Sandra, the eldest, wore approval like a church Sunday hat. She knew the recipe for praise and never forgot measurements. Beverly learned steadiness, a nurse before she earned scrubs. Her calm voice could lower Mom's blood pressure across rooms. Ronald, the only son, was crowned before he crawled. He was teased gently, forgiven quickly, and celebrated loudly. I was the fourth chair, the one pulled from storage. The wobbly leg, the seat that pinched your thighs. I grew up watching the table like a lit stage. Every holiday, the spotlight turned, and I waited backstage. When my report cards came, Mom checked spelling, not effort. She underlined mistakes like they were threats to tradition. Sandra's pies were praised, Beverly's babysitting declared saintly work. Ronald mowed lawns and earned applause like parade confetti. I wrote essays about women building futures beyond county lines. Mom said futures are built where your people know you. She meant stay near, marry kind, cook big, complain small. I tried that language, but the words never fit right. Even as a teenager, I craved skylines more than fences. Marketing sounded like storytelling that could also pay mortgages. I wanted to lift ideas higher than our town steeple. Mom thought dreams that tall would blow a girl over. When I left for college, she packed sweaters and warnings. Phone calls were updates about neighbors and the church bazaar. I learned to say, like a period with manners. After graduation, I took the Cleveland job and carpooled freeways. I bought secondhand blazers, practiced handshakes, collected tiny victories. I called on Sundays, breathing steam from a chipped kettle. Mom saved her warmth for Sandra's children and Beverly's shifts. Ronald's setbacks were God's mysterious construction plan, praised as perseverance. Mine were proof I'd wandered too far from family values. When Chicago called, I answered with trembling hands and hope. A better title, a team, a desk near windows. I packed my books, my courage, and one iron skillet. Some traditions deserve travel, like cornbread baked in cast iron. Her goodbye hug was brief, a receipt printed in haste. "You look professional," she said, meaning complicated, distant, maybe brave. I smiled and carried forward boxes heavy with expectation. In Chicago, my apartment echoed with the absence of witnesses. I bought a tiny dining table no one else used. I still set 2 forks, the way habits instruct. Work became a metronome, steady clicks I could trust. Deadlines, brainstorms, coffee rings, and the thrill of approval. I learned budgets like language. Numbers finally told me stories. Campaigns grew, my voice steadied. Travel became ordinary ritual. Airport gates looked like choices, and I chose forward. But loneliness kept a drawer in my kitchen, neatly labeled. I filled it with unsent postcards and almost dialed calls. I tried dating, but my calendar dated me instead. On birthdays, I shipped gifts wrapped in responsible prosperity. When Mom answered, she praised tracking numbers, not the thought. Back home, holidays shrank me to a guest with instructions. I brought roles, not opinions, patience, not questions, time, not tools. Sometimes I stayed away and let work take the blame. Truthfully, it hurt less than watching my chair go missing. Still, I kept a photo of that table on my phone. Not the people, just the wood, the scratches, the shine. I swore one day I'd return as undeniable family. Not to gloat, but to fit cleanly into sentences. The invitation arrived in November with cinnamon and maybe forgiveness. Her voice was warmer, or distance softened its edges. She said the grandchildren asked. She said the house missed me. I pressed the phone to my cheek like it could bless. I booked a first-class seat and told myself it mattered. Not for bragging, but to honor the girl I left. I picked gifts like apologies wrapped in honest prosperity, an iPad for Mom, hoping FaceTime might bridge years, art kits for the kids, a spa weekend for Beverly, kitchen appliances for Ronald and Peggy starting their kitchen story. I rented a black sedan that purred yes under streetlights. I practiced casual ways to mention a regional promotion. I rehearsed pauses that invited admiration without sounding hungry. Louise, the friend who remembers my poor girl's shoes, cautioned gently. Success rarely repairs parents. It only rents new misunderstandings. I laughed, then saved her warning like medicine for later. The drive from the airport stitched memory to present tense. Houses leaned the way they always had, brave and tired. The mailbox still tilted left, stubborn as family habits. She opened the door wearing that blue cardigan of heiress. Her hug was brief, and her smile was practiced. "You look professional," she said again, like a label. I stepped inside carrying boxes, relief, and fragile hope. Sandra's children galloped through rooms, frosting on their hopeful mouths. Sandra's hello was louder than sincerity, but warmer than routine. Beverly arrived in scrubs, fatigue pleated across her gentle forehead. She teased the first-class ticket, then asked about the weather. Ronald entered with Peggy, pride softening the edges of worry. His hug felt like a home team scoring late. We arranged gifts on the couch like exhibits of effort. Mom said too much, which meant just enough but complicated. The kids squealed. Sandra apologized, then smiled without apology. Beverly loved the spa card and promised someday like prayer. Peggy thanked me twice, a newcomer learning our family accent. I started a story about jobs returning to the Midwest, about factories humming again because our message reached real people. Mom preferred bake sales, choir rehearsals, and familiar weather. The room shifted, and my sentence searched for landing. I told myself patience, the first lesson the kitchen teaches. Later, I offered to fix the leaking roof and steps. Not charity, just love with a contractor and clear invoices. The pause that followed felt like a drawer slamming shut. "We have managed fine," she said. Sandra translated managed to offended. I nodded, swallowed, and folded napkins into little boats. In that moment, I understood the curriculum assigned to me. Bring sweetness, not solutions. Praise, not plans. Time, not tools. I had come home with both hands full and open. But the house recognized only one currency: familiar sacrifice. So I exhaled quietly and set another place in hope. We slid into afternoon the way gravy finds potatoes slowly. Sunlight moved across curtains like a quiet church procession. Sandra anchored herself in the kitchen like a captain. Her spoon tapped pots, a metronome of familiar authority. Directions landed on me with polite edges and distance. "Unwrap rolls," she said, as if I might miscount. "Keep the kids out, it's safer that way tonight." Translated, "Help, but do not touch what really matters." Beverly lined serving bowls like instruments before careful surgery. Ronald tested lights that blinked stubborn and tired together. Mom floated between rooms, tasting sauces, tasting the air. I watched the stove clock blink, a small green heartbeat. My gifts glittered on the couch like decoration, not gratitude. Tommy tugged my sleeve. "Can we build the console?" "After dessert," I said, promising later with crossed fingers. "Tomorrow," Sandra called, not turning, decisive as a gavel. I guided the kids toward crayons and construction paper quietly. Peggy offered to help, eyes checking Ronald for instruction. In the living room, I tried travel small talk politely. Mom preferred weather, traffic, casserole texture, and hymn numbers. I tucked my promotion back into the pocket where hope lives. When the timer chimed, the house gathered around tradition. Sandra announced, "Dinner in 10, like a captain calling stations. Beverly carried sweet potatoes like a nurse escorting medicine. Ronald lifted the turkey platter with shoulders full of history. I reached for green beans, eager to carry something meaningful. "Careful," Mom said, taking the dish before I could. "That bowl was Grandma's. The handle loosens when warm." In the dining room, I counted chairs the way prayers count. 7 at the table and 1 low wooden stool. It lived in the kitchen, wobbling under childhood bite marks. "Where do I put this?" I asked with placemats. Beverly exhaled a triage answer. 7 settings are fine." She added 1 more fork to the sideboard like compromise. "You can use the stool," Sandra said, smooth and efficient. "It's only for 1 night," Mom added, straightening the salt. The salt knew its place. I was still learning mine. I moved the stool, feeling splinters familiar as old announcements. The seat sat lower, like forgiveness that never reaches eye level. From there, I saw elbows, never eyes, a familiar angle. Conversation floated overhead, a ceiling fan of topics and temperature. Prayer arrived like a bell. Heads bowed, I bowed slower. Mom thanked God for family, health, and steady work. She did not thank anyone for rent that never lapsed. Amen scattered around the table like pennies on a plate. Serving began in clockwise choreography and comforting commentary. "White meat," Sandra said, portioning like a careful judge. "Dark, please," Ronald murmured, buttering a roll with gratitude. "Careful with marshmallows," Beverly warned, guarding sweet potatoes. Mom watched the table the way monarchs guard borders. When the turkey reached me, the spoon had cooled already. I filled my plate with reasonable portions and unreasonable feelings. Conversation lifted off without me, a train I just missed. Sandra praised Tommy's reading. Mom crowned her devotion with approval. Beverly described a patient choosing hope over fear bravely. Ronald explained a porch project for an older couple. "Honest labor builds character," Mom said, warm as lamplight. I cleared my throat and offered a story about work. "We just finished a campaign reopening a plant in Lima. 200 new jobs between Ohio and Michigan. Real impact." Forks paused. Faces turned politely the way ushers turn hymns. "That's nice," Mom said, the phrase that ends bridges. "Money isn't everything. Presence matters more than promotions." Sandra nodded, kindness sharpening into a lesson on priorities. "It matters if you're here. The rest is numbers." Beverly added, "Our work is hands-on. We see change." My story felt weighed, measured, returned light like incorrect change. I tried again, planting words like seeds between potatoes. "It's not just revenue. It's stability for families and towns. Health insurance, paychecks on time, hope through the winter." Mom spooned gravy. "Faith holds through winters better," she said. Gravy glossed everything except the ache behind my ribs. Ronald glanced at me, a look shaped like apology. Peggy squeezed his knee, uncertain where currents were pulling. I turned to what I could control, practical, simple kindness. "The front steps need repair," I said, voice kept gentle. "And the roof leaks near the porch when it rains. I can call a contractor. I'll cover the invoices." The room tightened. Forks quieted. The clock kept blinking. Mom set down her knife like a line underlined twice. "We have managed," she said, a sentence with decades. "We don't need charity. We need respect for our managing." Sandra's smile rearranged into something neat and unwelcoming. "It's sweet you want to help, but not a project." "This is a home," she said, meaning not yours. Beverly shifted, bracing for impact only nurses anticipate early. "It gets complicated with contractors," she murmured, code for no. Heat rose in my cheeks, the oven door left open. I wanted to say love isn't charity. It's the grocery list. It's phone calls, rides, and steps, fixed before Advent Sunday. But the room decided my help was a headline problem, not the steady column I wrote each month quietly. I set down my fork and counted breaths like beads. The stool creaked under me, a small protest I understood. Lisa peeked in and mouthed, "Are you okay?" shyly. I nodded. She vanished, leaving crayons like brave confetti. Mom passed the rolls. "Take one, dear, not two." She rationed bread the way generals ration fuel, carefully. I tasted childhood, butter, and the rule book on my tongue. Conversation resumed, skirting my offer like politics at church. Beverly asked about choir. Sandra quizzed homework and manners. Ronald described lumber prices. Mom called them outrageous quickly. I held my tongue between molars, storage for foolish hope. Peggy tried a new lane, asked about my team kindly. I brightened and praised a young analyst from Toledo. Her ideas saved a rollout and kept overtime humane. Mom smiled thinly. "Good neighbors bring casseroles when illness hits." The room hummed agreement because casseroles never threaten anybody. I watched candle wax surrender by slow, inevitable degrees. Part of me cooled to silence. Another part clicked clear. If I could not be useful, I could be honest. Honest about what kept this table from breaking entirely. Honest about how lights stayed on and ovens preheated. I swallowed my bite and folded my napkin carefully. I cleared my throat, found a steadier gear, and spoke. "Since we're talking about presence, I want to clarify something. I've been present, just not in ways this table likes noticing." Silence met me, curious at first, then guarded and skeptical. Mom folded her hands like a gate closing in the wind. "Go on," she said, a pastor giving grudging permission. "For 2 years," I said, keeping my voice level and plain. "The rent here has been paid without a single late notice. The electric bill, water, internet, and groceries have cleared monthly. Ronald's car insurance, too, until his business steadies enough. Chairs shifted. The candle hissed. Silverware paused midair, surprised. Ronald blinked hard, color draining the way courage sometimes does. Peggy reached for his hand and missed, then tried again. Sandra stared at me like I'd spilled wine on lace. Beverly's eyes counted numbers I had already counted twice. Mom's jaw tightened, and the cardigan looked suddenly armored. "What are you saying?" she asked, though she already knew. "I'm saying I've been covering those bills quietly every month. Because you asked me to, and because I love you. Because I wanted this house warm and steady for everyone." Mom inhaled sharply, a sound like the oven door protesting. "How dare you bring that up at our table tonight?" Her voice narrowed, colder than the November air outside. "How dare you throw money in our faces like charity? Do you think dollars make you better than casseroles and care?" The room tilted. I set both feet on my wobbling stool. "No," I said. "I think money keeps the lights on. I think groceries appear because someone pays for them first. I think love can look like receipts, not just recipes." Sandra pushed back her chair, wood scraping like a reprimand. "There it is," she said, smiling without warmth. "Lesson ready. You leave for years, then try to buy your way back. You want applause because a bank confirmed your payment cleared." Beverly's voice trembled but held, the way nurses hold pressure. "It's complicated when help comes with announcements and accounting statements. It changes the oxygen in the room. It changes everything." I looked from face to face, names I had written checks for. "I never announced it until now," I said, hearing Steele. "I never asked for gratitude, favors, or a better seat. I did it because Mom called, afraid of losing the house. She asked me to keep things quiet, to spare your worry." Mom's eyes flashed. Humiliation and fury took turns like ushers. "Enough," she said, pushing her chair back from the table. "We managed before you, and we will manage after you. Family shows up, calls home, brings soup, holds hands, prays. Not spreadsheets, not corporate cards, not lectures about stability." Sandra nodded vigorously, a choir amen riding behind her. "Exactly. You're always calculating, never simply present, never humble. You think respect is purchased like your airline seats are." Heat rose in my chest, that oven door again swinging open. "Respect comes from truth," I said, each syllable placed carefully. "Truth is, this table sits on payments I've been making. Truth is, you didn't notice until the stool made noise." Ronald finally spoke, voice small. "Alisa, I didn't know, truly. If I had known—" He stopped, words breaking like thin icicles. "You would have thanked me?" I asked, not unkind, just finished. "You would have found me a chair that didn't wobble?" He looked down. Peggy's fingers found his and stayed finally. Mom stood, hands flattened on the tablecloth like pressing wrinkles. "You don't get to hold this over us," she said. "You don't get to buy a daughter's place with monthly drafts. Money is not love, Alisa, and love is what we honor." I swallowed, then set my napkin beside my plate, deliberate. "Money is not love," I repeated, "but it keeps medicine cold. It keeps heat in pipes and water in kettles for tea. It keeps Ronald insured and Wi-Fi alive for homework sheets." Beverly's eyes shone. The nurse in her knew the truth. "Still," Mom said, voice sharpening to a point I recognized, "you left us, you stayed away, you forgot our real needs. You think success means leadership here, but you have not led. You have only paid and expected to be praised for paying." "I expected a seat," I said, softer than the clatter around. "Not a throne, not a parade, just a seat like others." The stool creaked, agreeing with me in its small wooden way. Mom's mouth thinned. The room's air pulled tight as stitching. "A seat is earned," she said, each word a measured stitch. "Earned with time, humility, calls, casseroles, the things that matter. You don't deserve a seat at this table. Not tonight." The sentence landed like a lid sealing a pot for good. Wax trembled on the candle. The hallway clock clicked louder. Sandra began clearing plates not yet empty, efficiency weaponized again. Beverly dabbed her eyes, whispering the Lord's Prayer to herself. Ronald's jaw worked a silent apology he didn't know how to say. I looked at the chair backs, at the years sewn into them. A deep quiet unlatched inside me. Not rage, not despair. It was clarity, the kind Louise predicted and I saved for later. I sat up straighter on the stool and let the truth breathe. If I don't deserve a seat, then neither do my payments. If presence is the price, then presence is what I'll pay. And money can finally rest where it belongs, away from duty. Peggy whispered, "Please, maybe we can talk tomorrow. All of us." I nodded to her, kindness meeting kindness in a difficult room. Then I reached for my bag, found my phone, and stood. Mom's face changed, anger bending toward fear like a willow. "What are you doing?" she asked, the gate finally rattling. "Stopping what doesn't belong to me anymore," I said, steady, "and starting something that finally does belong to me." I left my napkin folded, square as a decision on linen. I stepped away from the table, the stool still breathing. My phone felt heavy, like truth waiting inside metal. Mom's eyes tracked me, fear testing the doorway hinges. Sandra stacked plates faster, hoping efficiency could cancel consequences. Beverly whispered a prayer that sounded like counting backwards. Ronald hid his hands beneath the table, palms learning silence. I stayed within sight, in the arch between rooms. "Alisa," Mom said, softer now, "please don't make a scene." "This isn't a scene," I answered. "This is a correction." I tapped the screen and called the bank directly. Speaker on, volume low. Even the gravy stopped moving. A recorded voice thanked me for banking where neighbors matter. Tonight, my neighbors were the people avoiding my eyes. "Representative," I said, when cheerful options tried to distract. "Name and verification?" a woman asked, solid as granite. I answered steadily while forks cooled on good china. "Thank you, Ms. Morrison. How can I help today?" "I need to cancel several automatic payments immediately." Sandra mouthed stop. Beverly shook her head, ribs quivering. Ronald stared at the candle for advice it couldn't give. "Please list the payments," the representative said, businesslike and kind. "Monthly rent to Pine Street Holdings, $1,200, first of month. Electric to Ohio Edison, approximately $300 mid-month cycle. Water and garbage services, average $98, end-of-month processing. Internet and cable to Spectrum, $80 on the 28th. Grocery allowance to Martha Morrison, $400 every Friday. Auto insurance for Ronald Morrison, $150 the 10th. The room swayed, not from wine, but from arithmetic. "Confirming you want these canceled," she repeated carefully. "Yes," I said. "Effective now. Send confirmations to my address." Keys clicked like hail on a window. "Done," she said. "Anything else tonight?" "Yes, mail paper statements to my home." I ended the call. The house resumed its heartbeat. Mom's chair scraped. The sound ran through everyone's nerves. "You've doomed us," she said, cardigan hard as armor. "You've proven our worst fear about you was right. That you love power more than people, money more than family." I took one step closer, steadier than the floorboards. "No," I said. "I've returned power to truth. Truth is, I've underwritten this table for 2 years. Truth is, my seat cost $1,200 in silence. Truth is, I asked for nothing but ordinary respect. And tonight I learned respect isn't on the menu." Sandra pressed her palm to her temple like stopping weather. "You could have talked first," she said, "not torched the house." Beverly's napkin twisted. "There were better ways," she whispered. "You taught me the way that works here," I said. Silence first, then smiles, then more silence afterward. Tonight I tried a different way. Straight lines and daylight. Peggy stood, hands open the way kindness opens doors. "Maybe we breathe," she said softly. "Maybe we sit." Her voice reached me, but the decision already stood upright. Ronald cleared his throat, a rusty hinge hoping to move. "Alisa, my insurance. I should have handled it sooner. It kept me driving to jobs, kept the truck legal." "I'm grateful," he said, voice small as a winter bird. "This isn't punishment," I told him. "It's a boundary overdue. Call me about budgeting. I'll help, but differently." Mom's gaze sharpened, pride and panic sharing the microphone. "I will not be humiliated in my own home." "You paid," she said, "but you were never here. You bought receipts, not casseroles. Distance, not devotion." Her words tried to climb me like ivy, seeking cracks. I chose the plain sentence that could carry weight. Presence without respect turns into service. Service without honesty breaks people. She flinched as if honesty were hot, not healing. "I've kept this family together with string and prayer. I have folded 1,000 napkins into bandages." I looked at her hands, strong and worn like hymns. "I know," I said. "None of that was small. But I won't pay to stay invisible in this house." Something loosened behind my ribs, a knot stepping aside. I lifted my coat from the hook. The hallway watched. The turkey's warmth thinned, replaced by November's clean cold. "I'm going to a hotel," I said without theatrics. "I'll fly back tomorrow, recalculate without a scapegoat." "Don't leave angry," Beverly said, trying to stitch peace. "I'm not leaving angry," I answered, surprising even myself. "I'm leaving clear. Clarity is colder, but it's clean." Sandra folded her arms. The spoon finally stopped its circle. "You'll regret this," she said, but it sounded inherited. "Maybe," I said, or regret already kept me quiet. I stepped into the dark. The porch light hummed. The driveway held my rental car like a patient boat. Frost edged the windshield, glittering like stubborn truths. When the engine turned, it purred a simple gospel, go. I sat there, hands on the wheel, letting tears calibrate. Not sobbing, just rainfall easing weight across the dashboard. Before shifting to drive, I texted Peggy a quick note. Thank you for kindness. Ronald can call about budgeting. Her reply came fast. I'm sorry, I see you. I exhaled and pulled onto streets rearranged by memory. The hotel lobby smelled like cinnamon and printed confirmations. A clerk with kind eyes slid a key toward me. Holiday family? He asked, offering a bandage without gauze. Right, I said, wearing the smile that fits paperwork. The elevator mirrors returned a woman steadier than childhood. Inside the room, my phone slept on the desk. City lights stitched a loose quilt across the window. I ordered soup, the kind motel kitchens understand. I ate slowly, letting hunger and adrenaline negotiate terms. I replayed the table, every angle and missing chair. Tonight, I repaired the only leaking thing I owned. I ran a bath and watched steam fog the mirror. Sometimes you rebuild by removing the wrong supporting beam. Sometimes the structure shivers, then learns a better balance. The water held me without grating either version of me. I emerged wrinkled but taller inside, like bread after proofing. On the bed, I opened my laptop and typed. A small worksheet grew, practical as winter boots by doors. Columns for rent, utilities, groceries, a line named Dignity. A column for Ronald's insurance, now owned by Ronald. A space for prescriptions, but with shared accountability, written. I wasn't abandoning them. I was abandoning my invisibility. I saved the file and closed the screen gently. Then I silenced the phone and turned off the lamp. Darkness unfolded like a blanket finally made for me. I slept without asking permission or waiting for a chair. Morning brought coffee and quiet, not fireworks or apologies yet. By noon, my phone vibrated, Mom's name filling the screen. Her voice was smaller, as if pride had caught cold. Can we talk? She asked, and the room nodded yes. I went to the bank, she said, and learned arithmetic. The rent, the utilities, numbers heavier than my cardigan pockets. I didn't know the total. I didn't know the weight. Silence settled between us, finally honest, finally breathable. I was ashamed, she said, and angry at the shame. I punished the only person who made the shame survivable. I'm sorry, she said, words careful as china in hands. I am so sorry for the stool in the sentence. The apology loosened something, but boundaries held their ground. I'm willing to help, I said, but not invisibly anymore. No more secrets, no more guessing, no more quiet heroics. We make a plan we can all read in daylight. She sniffed, then steadied the way hymns gather themselves. Come home Tuesday, she said. We'll meet after dinner. Not a performance. Real numbers, real tasks, real responsibilities. I agreed, not from weakness, but because clarity builds bridges. Tuesday night, we sat around the same table, minus gravy. Sandra brought ledgers. Beverly brought a calculator and steady patience. Ronald brought his checkbook and a willingness to listen. Peggy brewed tea, mercy steeped with lemon and truth. Mom unfolded every bill like photographs of hard months. No one flinched away. Everyone kept their hands visible. We totaled rent, lights, water, insurance, groceries, prescriptions, gas. We wrote beside them names, amounts, and honest due dates. My column was shorter now, but heavier with intention. I would help with rent when emergencies pressed too hard. Beverly took utilities when overtime fattened the paycheck. Sandra picked a part-time job that fit school schedules. Ronald owned his insurance and a set monthly contribution. Mom handled groceries with a clear budget and envelopes. We added a line for contingency and another for grace. If one slipped, the others stepped in with notice. Not secrecy, not martyrdom, not pride dressed like virtue. When the plan fit the page, we breathed together. Then we drafted rules that chairs could understand easily. Respect is not seasonal. It does not skip place settings. Careers count as devotion when they keep roofs from leaking. Financial talks happen monthly, with coffee, not accusations. Chairs are counted before supper. Everyone sits at equal height. Prayers name every kind of labor, paid and unpaid. We signed the paper like neighbors finalizing a fence. Mom touched my name and whispered, "Welcome home for real." The next weeks were uneven, but truer than before. Old habits rattled. New ones learned to stand upright. We reminded each other gently when voices curved into blame. When Ronald stumbled, he called not to borrow, but to plan. When Beverly snapped from exhaustion, Sandra took Wednesday pickup duty. When I felt invisible, I said so in plain sentences. Nobody laughed at numbers. Nobody shamed casseroles or spreadsheets. At Sandra's birthday 6 months later, I came early with flowers. The table had 8 chairs waiting, each one steady and sure. A place card read Alisa beside Mom's right hand. I ran my thumb along the wood, remembering splinters forgiven. During grace, Mom thanked God for jobs, meals, and mended manners. She thanked him for daughters, all of them in present tense. When we ate, conversation circled like geese finding formation. We spoke of children, patience, porches, budgets, and small victories. Later, Mom and I washed dishes like old partners. I can't fix yesterday, she said, but I can count chairs. I can count you, she added, smiling at the arithmetic. I dried the last plate and set it in place. What changed us wasn't money. It was measured honesty. What saved us wasn't sacrifice. It was shared responsibility. And what stayed was simple dignity, finally seated among us. Have you ever felt invisible at your own table? If this story touched you, tell me where you're watching. Share your experience with boundaries, respect, and rebuilding family trust. Please like the video, subscribe for more true family dramas, and ring the bell so you never miss the next chapter. Thank you for being here with me tonight.